thank you everybody for, first of all, taking the time to join us on this lovely Sunday afternoon, or wherever you are. Maybe it's morning or nighttime. So I'm Kingski. I go by they, them pronouns, and me and Kata are going to be talking about royalties and everything in between. And just wanted to say that this is the fourth official meeting and session that the Room We Needed has hosted. So anybody that's new, I mainly started this community as a safe space for LGBTQ plus creatives and allies in music. So that way we can learn and connect, collaborate, and feel supported in these rooms that we're in. And I always preface with, we don't have a lot of representation in the music industry. So I know that one of the biggest challenges can be access, and that's why accessibility is super important to me just as a human. And I want to be able to provide opportunities and community and free information, right? Like no gatekeeping and resources. So that's one of my main goals with the Room We Needed. And I just want to create more of that access through these free workshops. So thank you guys for joining us here. And with that, I'm super excited to introduce Kata. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what maybe got you into the music industry, and what are the next steps in your career?
Awesome. Yeah, nice to meet you all. My name is Catalina. I'm originally from Spain. And around 3 years and a half ago, I moved to LA to really learn about the music industry and specifically be part of the music business side of things. So I started a music business degree, and now I'm only like a few months left into that degree. During that time that I was studying and learning and being surrounded by all these creatives in LA, I've realized that a lot of independent artists and writers didn't have much access to music business knowledge. So I started learning with them really, and I started helping certain artists release their music and really face all those challenges that come with wanting to have your music out and develop different sides of your career, such as, when you're a songwriter, when you're a producer, a session musician, or the artist of your tracks, right? So I've been learning a lot about that. I'm also starting my career, and I thought it would be a great idea with King's to really show an introduction into these things of how to collect money, right? And the different hats that you have to wear or are probably wearing already and maybe are not, realizing, such as, being an artist or songwriting your songs, sometimes producing, right, or controlling the master side of your music, and how those things make money and you're probably being out if you're not collecting through certain, societies that are accessible in the US to do that. So yeah, my goal is to keep working on the publishing side of the industry, find a full-time job in that, and keep developing my skills on artist management and songwriting management, and on the publishing side of things. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll definitely get into a little more on publishing and all the societies that, he's talking about there. And just before we kind of get into the whole conversation, me and Kata thought of some questions that we could ask you guys, because we want to make this interactive, and we want to hear your guys' questions throughout the meeting, and also afterwards we'll have like that 10-minute window for just like if you want to unmute yourself and ask out loud. But for now, feel free to put in the chat how many songs, if any, have you released, and maybe if you haven't released any, if you're planning to release any, let's say this year, how many songs have you released? So you can put that in the chat. And then the other question we had was, who here has music available on streaming platforms? So Marouge, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but 3 songs, planning to release at least one more this year. Okay, very, very nice. And music on streaming platforms. Cool. Perfect, perfect. So if anyone else wants to drop their 5 out and available on streaming, plus one more to be released. Very nice. So you guys have some songs released and plans to release, right? So we're also going to talk about there's just so much to talk about that I'm thinking of with like even that checklist. We were talking about making like a checklist for when you haven't released a song yet and you're about to, all those like check boxes that you need to, tick that have nothing to do with like the artistic side, just purely business side. 15 songs on streaming platforms. That's awesome. Yeah, feel free to put your song links too that we can check out later. So let's see. And then raise your hand if you've ever heard of BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC. So, and then if anyone is not in the US, feel free to pop that in the chat because that would be great for us to know so we can Marouge. Do you guys have you guys are okay. I thought you had a question. Okay. So you guys have heard of BMI ASCAP and CSAC. Cool. And if you haven't, we'll dip into that a little bit later. And then this is super, super important. One of the things that we're really, really going to highlight in this call and in this workshop, how many of you are currently registered with with a performing rights organization, which is BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, GMR, stuff like that in the US. But if you're out of the US, it'll be different. Cool. Good, good.
My
Okay.
BMI system. BMI is winning for now.
I'm with BMI. So yes, BMI's winning. And then who here has no idea or maybe a slight idea of what royalties that they're collecting? Because maybe you didn't know that BMI is not the only way to to collect certain royalties that your music is making. So who here has no idea what royalties they're collecting? Very little, LOL. So glad I'm on this call. Yes, glad you're on this call too. It's really confusing when me and Kata were preparing for this, like we were like, oh my God, there's so much info. And I was finding myself confused. Like I was like, wait, am I even collecting all the things that I should be collecting? So this is amazing information for us that we can really tailor it for you guys. So didn't realize there were more places to register than the pro until you're saying, yeah, what would you say, Kata? Like, do you feel like this information is like gate kept or it's just hard to find or not talked about
I'm
enough?
not sure, to be honest. The question is which spaces offer this information, right? I think like sometimes when you're in music conferences, maybe you would be hearing about this, collection societies. Obviously, Pieros are pretty famous. I wouldn't be able to tell you why exactly, but I think like, for many independent artists or people who are starting their career, right, they are their own writers of their music, right? They perform their songs as artists. So the PRO could be perfectly a first step into royalties, right? So, important to say, if you are with BMI or ASCAP, right, which are the free ones to join. There's others in the US that you gotta be invited to, like CSAC or GMR or Alltrack. I don't know. There's like a lot of them. But the thing is, you can only be with one of them, okay? And when you sign up with one of them, either let's say BMI or ASCAP, right? There's a term of for how long you're gonna be with them, right? So whenever you join, check for how long that agreement with that company or collection society is for, because some people wanna change at a certain point of their career, and they might struggle or not be allowed to change to from BMI to ASCAP or from ASCAP to BMI because they have a term on their agreement with them, right?
Yeah.
Not to say you have to change between each of them. Honestly, both of them are going to be collecting the same type of royalty, performance royalties. And yeah, I mean, performance royalties or why these companies or collection societies exist is they are going to be collecting on the performance, public performance of your song. song, not recording, so the composition side of things on the music, okay?
Yeah,
And
composition side.
they are gonna be paid to songwriters and publishers,
Yeah. I was
right?
just gonna clarify if, because I think that there's some really specific language that happens around, I mean, honestly, everything in music, but we're specifically talking about royalties. So when you say composition, um, can you specify like what roles fall into a composition?
Right. So composition or publishing, like it's interchanged in that sense on agreements and stuff. It's basically melodies and lyrics. So if it's instrumental, obviously we would just be talking about the composition of the melody of the song. And if it has lyrics, well, that's also part of the composition or publishing side of things, right? And then the other side of the industry is the recordings, so the master recording. So how that composition is going to be embedded in that sense on a recording. And that has other royalties and other rights in that sense.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So, kind of to just take a step back a little bit, we mentioned IPI numbers, and I saw a few comments, that people are registered with certain pros. Um, and once you register with a performance rights organization, you get this thing called an IPI number. So for those that aren't registered, um, and you are making music and you are wanting to release or you already have released, definitely get on that. I think that's like in the ideal world, I don't know if Kata, if you would agree, but in the ideal world, you would already be registered with a pro before you released that song. Like you might have some songs that you want to release, right? Or
Well, I mean, it's good to have things figured out of how you're going to be collecting or where you wish the money is going to come from and how before a song is released. But obviously, the performance royalties start happening once that song is publicly performed somewhere, right? So not only streaming, but obviously because most people release their music now on Spotify or Apple Music or any sort of streaming service as the first way of putting the music out. That's probably going to be the first public performance, right? The first thing that ASCAP or BMI are going to be collecting money for you on, right? But if you, for example, before releasing a song, play that song on a venue, that's also a public performance. And those venues should be registered and have a license with PROs. So you could be collecting on, live public performance through your PRO before the song is released. So I guess it depends on you as a creator, as a songwriter, would have to think, okay, how am I going to be using this new song, right? Where am I going to put it out? Where is it going to be performed, right? In this case, for
Mhm.
performance royalties.
Yeah, that makes sense. So performance royalties, you're talking about just to kind of reiterate any sort of public performance, but that includes um it being streamed off of a platform, like being played live. What about when it's being played, like because you mentioned venues and them having licenses, but does that also apply to like let's say restaurants and public spaces like a I don't know, grocery store or like a mall, Like how about that?
Right. Yeah, that should be the case. I would say you're owed performance royalties every time your song is available to the public and it's being heard by the public. So if you're in a private party or you're playing just for your friends your song, you're not gonna be making performance royalties out of that. But if it was a venue where there was like a certain amount of people, right, or it was available publicly, you should be, receiving performance royalties out of that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it also includes if, for example, you created a song that's only for sync, right? The famous word of the industry. And that, you're also making performance royalties out of that once the show or movie or ad or whatever it's available to the public, you're also collecting performance royalties out of that, okay?
Mhm.
So it's all the scenarios where your song is gonna be listened by a group of people, right? By the public, not in a private setting in that sense.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So no no doing private parties and playing your own songs to get money, basically.
Depends if you charge a ticket, then yes, but That's
True.
another thing.
That is very true. Okay, so we kind of covered performance royalties a bit, and I wanted to ask about the roles a little bit more. I think maybe we can talk about the different types of royalties and the roles, because that way I think that would make sense more like to everybody in the call and apply to everybody. So performance royalties on on the composition side. So what roles fall into that? Is it just like a writer or like people writing lyrics, like you said?
Right. So performance royalties are paid to writers and publishers. Many people are like, oh, well, I don't have any publishing company, like, and they get stressed because like, okay, people are asking them, what's your publishing company? What's your publishing company? You don't have to register an LLC or like doing business as or something. Like if you are the one who is, let me say, if you're the one who is actively looking for opportunities for those compositions or for those songs to make money, then you're your own publisher. And automatically, as an independent, writer in this case or artist, if you write your songs, you are your own publisher already. Okay? So that's why you need to register with your PRO both as a writer and as a publisher because you're owed from both sides. Okay, it's automatically on the industry. There's always one share that's for the writers and one share that's for the publishers, but you are both. Okay, so on ASCAP, it's pretty clear to see when you go before signing up, they ask you, do you want to sign up as a writer? Do you want to sign up as a publisher? Or do you want to sign up as both, right? And if please, 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 if you're independent and you haven't signed up to a PRO, sign up as both a writer and a publisher because you are owed that other 50% of the share that's just for publishers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was going a little bit everywhere, but PROs pay writers and publishers only.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the word publisher is very, I don't know if I
Business?
would say scary, but it's just like, what does that even mean? So I
Yeah.
appreciate you kind of going into that a little bit more. And I was curious to ask everybody in the call, like who here is, we clearly have some people registered with BMI or ASCAP. So who here is registered as both a writer and a publisher? So uh,
Yes.
Marouge. Awesome.
Right.
That's awesome. I actually recently did this and I've been releasing music for uh a disgusting amount of time for me to not have a publisher because I just didn't understand. But I was also working with another person. So we had our publishing, but then, you also, I feel like it's important to have your own publishing for your own project too. Um, and I did not have that till like last year, which is crazy. Both in BMI. Nice. Good, good, good. So, and then I wanted to ask one last question with that. If you're if you have your publisher and you are registered as a writer, um again for people that maybe don't have that, like how do you go in simple terms about registering your music in these platforms as a writer and a publisher? Do you have to do it in both accounts? Do you do it in one? Do you have to be a writer and a publisher in the same pro? And like kind of touching on these things.
Okay, the last thing that you said, I think it's interesting. Do you have to be a writer and a publisher on the same PRO? I would say yes. I've never seen anything different. I don't know if you would even be available, like able to do it on the other one. I'm not sure. But I would say to make everyone's life easy, please do it in the same company if possible. Um, Easy way to register, you go to the website, either ascap.com or bmi.com, I think it is. And then first thing you're gonna say, like see, probably it's register or login, and then you're gonna click register, right? And then either on BMI or ASCAP, you will see they're gonna be asking you if you want to sign up as a writer or as a publisher. And you need to make sure you register with both. That's the easy way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once you have your account, every time you create a new song, you gotta register it, right? So that's once you're in your own account inside of the app. or the, browser, you're gonna be able to see register a new song, and then you put all the information of the song, and the song will be on their system. So they will start collecting those royalties for you.
Hmm. Also, I know this might sound dumb, but you have to use the same exact name every time. That might fall more under credits, but I feel like that might fall under registering too, like making sure what is your writer name, right? This was something
Yeah,
that
you
me
gotta
and
know.
Kata
You
talked
gotta
about.
know, please,
We're
please.
gonna actually ask everybody this. We're gonna say, what is your writer name and what is your publisher name? We don't care if you don't have one. You are leaving this meeting with one and you're gonna go register. So what we mean by that is your writer name is if you're an artist, that is not your artist name, right? That is your like legal name. Where
Right, so when you sign up with the PRO, you're gonna see your account. Your writer account is gonna have a name, which is the one that you inputted when you created the account. That's gonna be your writer name. And it's gonna have right below an IPI number. Remember that number. And when you create your publisher account on either BMI or ASCAP, that account is gonna have a name, which is gonna be the name of your publisher entity, right? So you gotta remember those things, and also an IPI for that account.
right, so
So
two,
when once you start getting involved in the industry, right, with other publishers or collaborators, they're gonna ask you for these things to be able to find you and add you to credits or of releases or co-writes or anything like that.
yeah, the IPI number is we were kind
Do
of
you
coming
have
up
to use
with a way.
your legal name as your songwriter name?
Oh wait, sorry, what did you say?
No, I'm just reading the chat. Let's see.
Oh yeah, there's a couple questions. So you said, don't you have to use your legal name as your songwriter name? Yeah,
I don't think you need
like
specifically
as
to
your
put
writer
your
name.
full legal name. I think you can choose what you input. Most times people put their full legal name. That's common. But I don't think you specifically need to input your full legal name. And
I
then the
think
other
it's just
question, let's see,
easier to track because your full legal name is never going to change, but you might change the name of your band or the name of your artist name.
right? And then there's another question, right? Do you have a flow you follow to ensure every song's registered everywhere? Well, a checklist. I've been doing a mental checklist, but we do want to distribute after this meeting an actual physical checklist for everyone to have. But I guess when I work with someone that just created a song, right? Um, See, this is so confusing because I was gonna say, okay, I go to the distribution service to arrange the release, but that's master stuff. And then on the song side, I go to, the PRO, the MRO, which in this case is gonna be the MOC. And all. So we can chat about this question specifically, I think, at the end of the call, because we will have more information. But yes, there's a flow, and we can definitely give you some resources for that.
Yes, 100%. And then Marouche said, can you explain the difference between these royalty streams and why that might be? Trying to
Let's see.
remember which ones were we talking about performance. Oh, you were talking about was it DistroKid and
Oh yeah, that's another whole thing. So DistroKid distribution service, any distribution service works on master royalty, so the recording, which we'll get into in just a second, probably, right?
yeah, we can jump into that.
Awesome.
Did anyone have any questions about like how to register or get your IPI number or why we have two separate IPI numbers as a writer and a publisher? Um, and also those two halves are still just the composition. We're just talking about composition right now. We're gonna get into the master sound recording later.
Right. So in music, right, when you see a song, there's two sides to the song. There's the composition, which is the melody and the lyrics, right? Which we're gonna call the song or the work. And then there's the recording, which is the master recording of the track, right? For the composition or the publishing side of things, the song, that's always going to be owned by writers and publishers. And for the recording, that's either going to be owned by labels or just master owners, whoever controls and owns the recording. And those two sides of the industry, right, have different royalties. So right now we're talking about the publishing side of things or the song. And outside of performance royalties, right, like BMI or ASCAP, there's another way to collect on a different type of royalty, which is mechanical royalties, right? So same way we said that performance royalties are for the public use, right, or public performance of a song, mechanical royalties, what they collect or why they exist is they collect on monies generated when a song is reproduced in the sense of a copy has been made. It's a little bit confusing, but on the digital side of things, which is how we usually, first create songs, right? So on streaming or any sort of recording, a copy is made, for example, when you click play on Spotify or Apple. Every time you click play, there's a micro copy that's been generated. So you are owed mechanical royalties. And how can you collect those mechanical royalties in the US? Through the MLC, which is Mechanical Licensing Collective. It's also free to join, and it's pretty new. It became a thing signed into law in 2018, and I started, being used in 2021. But the MOC is how you're going to be collecting mechanical royalties, right?
And mechanical falls under, just so.
Composition. So also writers and publishers. Any questions in regards to the
We
MOC?
have MLC and we have the pros
Right.
composition. Everybody got that?
So before the MOC, it used to be Harry Fox Agency, which maybe sounds more familiar. Uh, Harry Fox Agency, it's another entity again, right? Another collection society. It still helps the MOC and they work together on things. But I would say the MOC, it's very easy to sign up for and it's something that you should definitely have in count.
Mm-hmm. Here, we have some questions here in the chat. So Mary said, I have a question. If you don't have a publisher, but you are splitting composition, do you keep publishing or do you also split publishing?
Right, right. And it gets confusing because you're like, okay, 50-50, 50 for the writer, 50 for the publisher on like a visual side of, what a song is. I would say most commonly when you're creating a split for a song, you would divide the same percentage. Like if Kingski and me write a song and we say, okay, we're gonna be 50-50 on the composition, we would be talking 50-50 for the writer and 50-50 for the publisher. So technically 25-25, 25-25. It's confusing, but basically usually if we say 50-50 on the song, we're talking the same percentage for writers and for publishers.
Yes,
Technically speaking,
exactly.
depends.
And then I kind of wanted to ask if Mary was talking about like going into a writing session and like you agree that, right, we're talking about only the writing part, right? The composition. So if you guys are only talking about that, then yeah, you could split that 50-50. But then I just wanted to clarify, are you asking like if you didn't have a publisher, what you would do in that case? Because I think that would be kind of like a different story. And maybe we can chat about that. Like, what if a writer does not have a publisher
Well,
and
you
they
do.
don't want to
Another thing is that you're not registered, but you technically, yes, you do. You are entitled to that publishing share no matter if you're registered or not. Okay. So usually if I receive like a split sheet with, again, Kingski and I write a song, I don't have a publishing entity and you do, then, and we're writing a song 50-50, for example, when I'm registering that song with ASCAP or BMI, I would say, okay, 50, 50% for Kingski, and I put all the information for her writer and publishing, entities. And for me, I would say the same thing, but I would put NA on publishing entity. So I would just say or tell the, BRO, hey, I do not know the name of the publisher that controls this share. But you technically are still owning that percentage. You just can't tell who it specifically is, right? Like what's the name or the information. which later on, if I decide, right, on this example, if I decide to create a publishing entity, I would be able to claim that title or that song. So you don't lose access to those songs, or those songs that are already registered, um, after, once you didn't have like a publishing name or writer name, right? So you technically can write songs when you haven't signed up with PRO, right? Or you don't have a writer name or publishing name, but you are not collecting till you create those accounts. It's
Mhm.
a bit confusing, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean and I think it's also important to talk about if there's like a time frame that if you don't collect or if you don't register as a publisher and then you don't register your song to that publisher, that you might be missing out on those royalties.
right. Well, I believe there's a thing in the industry that's called the black box, which is all those royalties that are uncollected. And there's definitely a timeline for an amount of time after the song is released or when something is unclaimed that it gets to the black box. I wouldn't be able to tell you right now what's the amount of time, but I do know there's a lot of time after the song is released or the song has been registered where you are still able to claim that song. So it's not something instant that you have to do within 30 days or a week or something from the song being available or, written, but it's something you should definitely try to do as soon as possible.
I did a quick Google search just to give a
Amazing.
more immediate answer, but it says you generally have 1 to 3 years to register your music and retroactively claim royalties because, right, those are already being collected. So, like, let's say, I mean, I had a song that I released in 2021, like, and I registered it now, I would not see those royalties until like you can't collect from the beginning, essentially. Like, so just keep that in mind. Even if it's
Unless
pennies,
you
right?
started 2 years ago. Yeah.
Like it can add up.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing, honestly. Like, I do not know a specific answer to that.
Yeah, we can always do another conversation about the like really diving deep into this because there's like people learn about this kind of stuff for a long time. So it's very hard to fit it into 50 minutes or like 1 hour. So
There's one question. Does this change if one person owns the song? I'm not fully sure what that means, but if only one person owns the song, that means the whole composition it's theirs, so you wouldn't have a share of that. I don't know if that's what you mean.
but what about like again, this is kind of a specific situation, but what if you had like admin
Oh,
um rights, like people could still
right.
have
So
this.
I think the whole purpose of understanding as an independent creator, what hats you're wearing, right? Or what you own. So you own the master and you own the publishing, right? Or the song. uh, Once you understand that you are the owner of those things, when you create something, right, and you release it, then you can understand, okay, who am I sharing this ownership with, right? Or who am I going to be paying, or who's paying me to be a part of this project, right? So on the recording side, if you're independent and you release a song and a label really likes it, they're gonna be or want to be part of that master ownership, right? Or administering the revenue or things like that. But on the publishing side, if a publisher, which you're already your publisher, again, if another publisher comes in, it would be a co-publisher because you're already your own publisher, and they would want to share that revenue or that things opportunities that are being generated, right? So for example, I think this all needs to be examples. If Kinski writes a song and I really like that song and I'm a publisher, right? And I'm like, okay, I would love to administer for you, so act as a publisher, which means on an admin side I would register your songs. I would, look for opportunities to put those songs into recordings. I would look for co-write sessions, right? Or maybe I would try to like pitch things, depends on if they have creative services or not, right? And in exchange for that, common deals could be either a co-pub deal where, I would own 50-50 of the publishing share, not all publishing share with Kinski, Or I would do an admin deal with Kingsley where we would share the revenue generated from the publishing share, and I would keep a 15%. Again, this is confusing, but it's important to understand, okay, you own probably the recording and you own the song, and then who are you sharing that with, right? That's when a second publisher comes in, or more publishers come in, or a label comes in, right? Or any administration of the master.
Right. And I think it's important to also say you don't need that. Like, I don't know if that's how common would you say it is just from like your experience of being on the publishing side?
I think you gotta think of getting people as part of your team. So in this case, on the song, to get a publishing deal or get a publisher, once you are not able by yourself to administer your songs, right? So if a lot of money starts coming in, if a song gets very famous, you're not only talking about collecting the royalties that we're talking about in the US, you're talking about all of the other countries in the world where your song is available, right? And we're just talking digital. Imagine your songs work very well and you also start printing, right? Those are also print royalties, like vinyl or physical sales or downloads or whatever thing, right? So once things start to get a little bit out of control, or it's too much to register or too much to make sure that you're collecting all of the money that's being generated worldwide, then I would think of getting a publisher. If you just started and you're not making money, or you don't get a certain number of streams, right? To start really generating some revenue out of your song, I wouldn't get a publishing and deal in that sense.
Mm-hmm. 100%. So we have about like 20 minutes, so I want to make sure we kind of get through the other half.
Right,
The
and this
other
is a
half
great question. There's
master.
a great question to get into that.
Yes.
Okay, so song, we're gonna be talking about PRO, which means ASCAP or BMI, or the MOC or Harry Fox Agency, which is mechanical. So we're talking about performance royalties and mechanical royalties. And then we have the master side, the recording, right? So who's gonna be collecting royalties for you on the master side, right? We have a few entities in the US, which could be Sound Exchange, but we also have distribution services such as DistroKid or TuneCore or whoever you sign up with to make your song, your recording really accessible on streaming services or really everywhere, right? Like YouTube and all of those digital like places, right? So distribution services also collect royalties for you on the master side, and they collect um, like the performance of the masters, right? So Spotify also pays your distribution service. For example, we said DistroKid, right? For the performance of that masters on that platform. And that money is being paid directly on, for example, your DistroKid app. So you would see there's a revenue that's being collected or, that they're keeping. Some distribution services would, you would pay them a flat fee and they would not take any percentage, but another ones would probably take a percentage of that revenue and you would share with them. That's how they make money, right? And then, so, from masters, you would be making performance of the masters, which your distribution service would be collecting for you and pay directly to you through that distribution app, right? Like DistroKid or TuneCore. And then Sound Exchange pays for the performance of your track, your recording, on what we call non-interactive streaming. So same way we have Spotify or Apple Music where you can choose what song you want to listen to, it's what we call interactive streaming. There's non-interactive streaming, right? Which is usually like digital radio, like Pandora or Sirius XM, where people cannot choose what they're listening to specifically, right? And those also generate royalties. So to collect those royalties, right? If your song is available on Sirius XM or Pandora or any sort of digital radio that uses non-interactive streaming, then you sign up with Sound Exchange. And Sound Exchange is also free, so definitely do it. It's worth it. Important to say when we talk about the masters, we're no longer talking about writers and publishers. We're talking about another hat, right? Another side of who you are as an independent creator, right? We're talking about labels and we're talking about artists or master owners in general, right? So for example, Sound Exchange pays, I believe, like a 45% of what they make to recording artists and 5% to labels, and then the other 50% goes to master owners. So if you technically, which is probably your case, are the full owner of your master, right? So you're your own label and you're your own recording artist and you're your own master owner, you're going to be making probably close to 100% of that revenue that's being generated from Pandora or SiriusXM, for example, right? So yeah, things to have in count. Yeah, master equals sound recording, not composition publishing. Let's see, any questions?
I'm trying to just
That's a lot to take,
concisely
so
put
just
your
ask questions.
words into notes in the
Yes.
chat. So we have that. Um, and yeah, also I always make like or I'll say usually, I make a like email thread with like what we talked about and stuff. So if your guys' email is attached to your Zoom, I'll send out a
With
thing.
the streaming, how is it split between mechanicals and performance? It's completely different rights. This all like why we are able to make money out of songs in this case, or performance royalties and mechanical royalties. It all comes from intellectual property and the right that we have as creators, right, to own a creation that we put into any format, right? So they're completely different. How it's split is separate in that sense. I don't know if that helps. But if the song is available on streaming, you're making a performance royalty. And if the song is being played, you're making a mechanical, a mechanical royalty is being generated. So it's completely th different things. They're not divided in that sense. Or the money doesn't come from the same place. They have to pay you for both things, for it being available to the public and for it to be able to be copied or played in this sense.
Right. Can you give or can you talk about maybe this might be the case for some people, like because someone earlier said about one person owning the song, right? So like if you yourself wrote the song, wrote, the lyrics, produced it and whatever, you own everything, right? So I mean,
Right.
I guess that could simplify essentially the process, but I don't know if you can talk about that a little bit.
If we make it very easy, if, well, and that's like so many instances where it's not the case, but like if you created or wrote the song with lyrics or without lyrics only by yourself and in a fully original way, which means without using AI or other things that could not be owned by you, yeah, then yes, you are fully the owner of the composition, which means, you would be owning 100% of the writer and publishing share of the song. And if you fully recorded the song by yourself or created the recording, again, without the use or help of any, in this case now, AI service that would enhance your recording, for example, then yes, you would own 100% the master. And I know I don't want to get into it because there's so many things that are unknown in that sense of the role of AI on music and on ownership. But if you made it 100% from scratch, either the recording or the song itself, then yes, you're the full owner in that sense, which would be technically a 200% pie, right? So 100% for the song and 100% for the recording.
Right. Understanding the 100% for
Yeah.
each is, I think that was probably one of the like most difficult things for me to understand. Like I feel like I had to sit with it for a long time. And I'm like, even if I'm making it myself, like why should it not add up to just 100? But there's two completely different sides, which is why we were talking about the pros and MLC, and then also sound exchange and distributors. So it
Or if
can
you think
be
about
kind of
it,
confusing.
if it makes it easy, and if we think about books, or any sort of like writing, right? If we simplify it, I can write a song in a paper, and that would be the composition. Like that would be already its own half, but I don't need to record those lyrics or sing those lyrics, right? On a recording. Like you can have a song without the recording, but you cannot have a recording without a song. I don't know if that makes sense or makes it more difficult. But publishing is all for the composition, and the composition doesn't need to be in a recording, which originally is how everything started. Like everything started because of print music, right? Or split sheet, sorry,
Mm.
what's it called? Music sheets and all of that stuff, which was not recorded, it was played, by a performer in a piano, for example. That was not recorded and that was publishing in that sense, right? So they're like two different things.
Yeah, it can definitely be like I think that I'm encouraging everybody to like sit with the information because I feel like I had to hear it so many times to kind of like put the pieces together and actually like doing it and registering and going through different situations where maybe I am the only one that's writing and producing, or also really important that I wanted to add is you can do work for hires, which is if you have some money that you can, oh no, my internet.
Now
If you
it's good. Now it's good.
Okay, if you have some money that you can put into like let's say even this is like best case scenario, I'm like, "Hey, Cyrus, can you play the piano for me on a track?" And then I'll like in return be like, "I can help you with the drums production on another track." Like do a trade of services, right? Or so that's kind of like another way, I guess, of thinking of a work for hire that you're not giving anyone a piece of your song, which I don't know if I encourage or not. Like I think it just kind of depends what you want to do. But there is essentially other ways I'm saying of being able to retain everything on your own, um, than like splitting it up into like, okay, you get 10% of the publishing and you get 10% of the writing and 10% of the recording because you're working with other people. Did that make sense? Hopefully.
Yeah, and then just for the last question, before you guys can jump into any other questions. So, what is a traditional split with an artist who wrote the lyrics and melody, built the structure of the production and lead production of the recording with a producer? So again, two different things, right? If an artist, in this case, who wrote the lyrics and the composition of a song, which in this case would be the writer and publisher, right? That's how we would refer to that person. Uh, and then a producer who helped create the recording. So the producer, since it worked on the production and not on creating the lyrics and composition, we would just be focusing on how do we share, or how do we pay, or how do we, I don't know how to say it, like how do we
I can do the split.
share, yeah, like how do we share what happens with the masters, right? So there's probably different ways to do it. There's not a traditional way, like either I pay you or I give you this percentage, but it's always, are you paying them for a service? Are they open to being paid for a service, which would be a flat fee, which we would be considering work for hire? Or there's this things called producer points, right? Which is exactly, I think, what you're talking about. Some people ask a mix of two, like I'll get paid, I don't know, a little bit of money, but I also want a certain percentage. Depends, it's case by case, but the important thing is that you need to make sure when you chat with producers or people who work on masters, what you're going to be negotiating is the master. So 100% of the master, never the
Only,
publishing side of the song, unless, they help co-write or be part of the songwriting side of it.
which is again just lyrics, melodies. Um,
Yeah,
I don't even think chords are considered unless it's like some crazy chord progression that's not like, you know,
depends. Yeah.
Jesus. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's weird.
I'm
No,
gonna,
I don't know who this producer is. That's
yeah,
wild.
that's interesting.
That's pretty wild. I mean, I've
Maybe
never
take a
heard that
pass
before.
on that.
Also, producer points on, at least on recordings, if again, this is very political because obviously I don't want to say how much a producer should be given in a percentage number, because it always depends on the situation, right? How big the artist is, are they getting paid, are they not getting paid, uh, all of those things. But producer points usually go between 1 to 5% of a recording, and it usually comes out of the artist share on label releases. Now, if you're independent, right? If I work with Kingsley on a song, and I'm like, I don't know how to produce, can you help me do the full master recording, right, from scratch? Then we'll probably do like a 50-50 of the masters or something like that, because like, they're helping so much in that sense. Like it's not standard. I don't think there's like one number specifically, and I don't think it should be at all.
Yeah, I
It's crazy
think
enough. 10K is too much.
yeah,
Not
it
don't.
depends. It really depends. So again, if like I've worked with people that I'm not necessarily like it's just like it's a job, you know. Like I go to them and I'm like, "Hey, can you arrange the strings for me? Because that's gonna save me time and whatever." So I pay a flat fee and sometimes that's it, right?
Work for
That's
hire, yeah,
all that
that's it.
happens. And if you do a work for hire, please make sure you have a document. Literally just
And
signing off that for this song, I'm paying this much like by this date and I'm going to receive whatever by this date and they sign and you sign and everybody knows it's a work for hire. So you can always cover your butt like later down the line if you get a let's say you get a sync placement and they're like, "Oh, well, I did the string arrangements, so I am entitled to blank percent." But no, I have this agreement that you did a
right.
work for hire.
And from another perspective, if it's a little bit challenging to get into agreement conversations as a creator, I always think about it or talk with like the artists that I work with as it's not just you protecting yourself against them in case something happens with them in like a battle situation. It's good for them. Like on a writer split, when someone asks you to sign a writer split, right, which is who's gonna own the composition or the song, and they ask you to sign that as a paper, it's also good for you. It's for your records, right? So I wrote this song with this person. This is the percentage that I'm entitled to, and this is how I'm gonna register it or what I'm owed. So it's good for everyone. Like all of these things should be, any agreement should be seen as an agreement. So you both are, um, making this happen for your own good in that sense. It should never be like one-sided, or most of the times it shouldn't be. Even if it's a work for hire, you're getting paid and you're agreeing to that money for your service, right?
Yeah.
So don't see agreements as a bad thing in that sense. Try to make it into a conversation where you want to make sure they get paid or they are attributed to their percentage in a fair and positive way in that sense.
Mhm. So we have a couple more minutes here. I'm gonna actually run a quick poll to just ask how you guys feel about
Yeah.
understanding composition and composition publishing and master royalties. And then the question about your writer and publisher name. So I think that will be a nice little thing to do for this.
Also, Kingsley, I remember when we were chatting about this meeting, you brought this metaphor of the IPI numbers and like your bank accounts. So, IPI numbers are very, very, very important. It's part of the metadata of a song, and it's how whoever, oh wow, this is cool.
I just I just put the I didn't know it was gonna like pop up like that, but if you guys
Yeah,
can just answer the questions, that'd be awesome.
yes. But IPI numbers is gonna help you and whoever is registering the song make sure that you get your money. So that's why you need to know it and be able to tell everyone you're co-writing with that number.
Right. Exactly. Like when I think we were talking mainly about like when you start a new job, and Kata said it really well, like think of each song as a new job, right? So every time you start a job, what's the first thing you do if you want to get paid?
If you're getting paid for the job, you
If
set
you're
up your
getting
bank account,
paid, you're gonna
deposit.
enroll in direct deposit. Probably. I mean, most people, right? That's like the standard way. So let's say signing up for the pro and getting your IPI number, right? That's that standard way of how am I going to get paid? I need to have an IPI number. I need to have a way to collect that money, which is the same thing as I need to have a way to collect money from my job through direct deposit. So you're giving away, like you're opening that pathway for the money to come in. And so that's only the pros, like we were talking about. And then of course you have to do that with all the other ones. Sound exchange. We talked about MLC. and all those things.
I
Yeah.
agree. I think, and I think we can prepare something for sure. It's hard to think about these things just in like your brain because there's too many divisions and percentages to think about. So, yeah, I mean, we want to share some resources and visual resources after the meeting, but I think it would be great to have some visual stuff for next one.
Yeah, would you guys be interested in, I mean, this was kind of just kind of like an intro chat for royalties and really starting to just dig into it. Again, there's so much, and we were just thinking that it might take longer if we had visuals and going through the nitty-gritty. So would anybody be interested in having another sort of round like this, but specifically talking about those royalties that we broke down and then having those pictures? Because I agree, it's a lot easier to understand with visuals. So yeah, if you guys are interested, just let us know. And it's kind of, we're just here to help educate and have good conversation. So think it think we did
Dropping a few
well.
links to sign up for.
Yeah, I think that sync that would be a completely different conversation. And I think there's just a lot of crossover on all these
Yeah,
subjects. So
yeah,
it's hard to not go like into everything at once because
right. For sync, if we want to say like for sync, you usually get paid a fee to be able for that production company to use your song. It's like a flat amount, right? And then you're also collecting performance royalties once the song is placed on that media and that media is shown publicly. So upfront money and then performance royalties.
but the
And
royalties,
when right, that's usually what happens with sync. Usually.
yeah,
Yes.
right. There's always curveballs and like things that don't go
Well,
as you.
sometimes they want to own the song, so then that would be a work for hire. It depends. Again, this is like there's not one solution for all, but
Mhm.
most times it's a license.
Yeah, awesome. Any last minute burning questions or comments before we wrap it up? I don't think
Awesome.
I think we got through our whole like key takeaways, right? Mainly.
Thank you all so much. I love how you're putting your links to stuff. I would love to follow you all or whatever you have your music out. Would love to hear it. So feel free to put your links or something.
Yes, and I totally forgot because I was just so invested in the conversation. Everybody feel free to drop your, if you guys have an Instagram, I made a group chat that I use to mainly just put in like resources or like opportunities and things like that, directed at like LGBTQ plus like musicians and things. So if you guys want to be added to that, feel free to drop your at in the chat. And yeah, we can pretty much just wrap it up. I don't really have anything else, but I'm really happy everybody came today, and thank you guys for taking the time again. Um, I really hope that like my main hope always is that everyone feels comfortable to ask the questions and um like not like feel scared because I know this industry is like full of maybe people that might not be in our community or like for me, I'll speak for myself, not a lot. I don't think there's a lot of people that look like me like in that sense. So um I just hope everybody feels comfortable to ask anything that they're confused about. And hopefully we were able to break it down in a good way that you guys can all understand. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, it was great meeting them. Hope to see you all again. And I know it's a lot to take. Like it's normal if you're feeling very overwhelmed right now. We're all in that sense like that with publishing. It's something that you need to like repeat multiple times for it really to be something that sometimes you really understand. I'm also in the process of that, and I think what I love about this community is that we are all learning, right? So Kingski's reached out to people who are also starting on both sides, like creatives and business people. And I'm very excited to keep learning from all of your questions and all of the things. And reach out if you need anything. I'm always here to help.
Yeah, same here at the room we meet. I'm gonna make sure you guys all have that. So that account is where I'll put like the group chat stuff. So again, thank you guys. Excited to read the responses after the poll, and yeah, hope to see you next time. Have a good rest of your weekend.
See you.
Bye bye.